The last thing I do while I'm on a site is walk around the perimeter and make sure we've found all our service penetrations. So as you can see here, we've got some power and phone cables coming in, and they've all been taped together. We need to separate them all so that we can wrap them all individually, but keep in mind that we need to put them back as close as possible to the way we found them. So once we've opened them all up and protected them with the Kordon wrap, we're going to need to put them back the way we got them. The requirement for these Kordon wraps is that they should be 300mm long. What I always try to do is ensure that when we are protecting them, that we put the wrap all the way from the ground or from the soil level at the bottom, right the way up through the slab. Keep in mind that the top of these pipes is going to come through the Kordon perimeter that we're going to install later. Those pipes will penetrate that Kordon perimeter. So by having this wrap come all the way up through the top of the perimeter, it will allow us to protect that easier down the track. What we want to start doing is we want to start wrapping the pipe in an area we do have access to, and then we can slide the wrap down the pipe to the area we can't easily reach down below the boxing. It's important that they're wrapped nice and tight, and you want to overlap the Kordon roughly by half the width of the 100mm strip as you wrap it, almost like a hockey stick or a tennis racket handle up the pipe, pulling it around, keeping it nice and tight with your left hand and pulling it around with your right, sliding it down the pipe. They can get to be quite tough to slide down, but we do want to try and get them all the way to the soil at the bottom. And as you can see here, we've finished our wrap right up above the slab height on the high side. This rebaited section is where the brickwork will sit, and this penetration comes right up through that. We then take a zip tie around the top to hold it in nice and tight, and another zip tie around the bottom of our wrap to make sure it doesn't come loose over time before the concrete goes in. As you can see here, we've got a copper water pipe coming up from the mains water feed up through the perimeter cavity. This lagging that they've put around the outside of our pipe is to stop the concrete contacting this copper pipe. It will stop the pipe corroding and any cracking from the compression of the concrete. Obviously, being your main water feed in, it's a fairly important pipe. The other thing that this lagging does is it allows possible termite entry between the lagging and the copper pipe, because that lagging goes all the way through down into the soil. So as a part of this termite barrier installation, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take some of this lagging off, and we're going to have to take it off down to a point where our Kordon wrap, gets compression from the concrete against the pipe, but we don't want to take it all the way off down into the ground, because we need to make sure that, again, the concrete doesn't contact this copper pipe. So we've removed the top section. That will allow us to wrap the Kordon from the lagging back onto the copper pipe, and again coming through the perimeter. Again, we start ourselves with a length of Kordon, and we need to wrap this Kordon from the Kordon lagging. So we start by coming around the lagging itself and then coming up past the lagging onto the copper, where it's going to be copper against, or concrete against the copper. Because we're going from a bigger surface at the around the lagging onto a smaller surface around the pipe, you might need to extend your overlap, make the overlap on the Kordon wrap a little more, so that we make sure there's no holes through our Kordon, and that there's no concrete that's going to come into contact with the copper pipe. You can see the overlap on this because we've come from the wider area of the lagging up to the thinner pipe. The overlap is considerably more on this one than it is on the wraps for the electricity or phone. But you can see that we've come right the way through the concrete. We've stopped any areas where concrete can contact the pipe, and any termites that do come up through that lagging will also hit the cordon that's compressed against our pipe as it comes through the slab. A zip tie around the top and a zip tie around the top of the lagging to make sure your cordon doesn't move off the lagging.